Hello and welcome to another exciting answer key video for your Motion of the Ocean review sheet. This is the key. All right, guys, let's start in on this. Hopefully you will be following along with your answer key, which should be all completed. And we are doing this to prepare for our test that we will be having most likely in the next class. So without further ado, let's get started. Describe the type of beach slope that would cause each of the three types of wave breaks. Now, I want you to remember what those three types of wave breaks are. We have spilling breakers, I'm not going to write the breaker part because that's is implied. We have spilling breakers. We have plunging breakers, and lastly, we have surging breakers. So, what are the three types of wave breaks: spilling, plunging, and surging? And what type of beach slope results from these three types? Well, I could tell you that with a spilling breaker, the beach slope would be a gently sloping beach. A gently sloping beach, and the wave will decrease slowly. Decrease slowly. With a plunging breaker, and you'll see why I wrote them in this order in just a second. With a plunging breaker, we see that we have a moderately steep beach, a moderately steep beach, moderately slow beach. And for this one, the wave flies over the bottom, the top of the wave flies over the bottom, and the wave decelerates very quickly. Wave decelerates quickly. And then finally, we have a surging breaker. And with regard to a surging breaker, these occur on very steep beaches, very steep beaches. And in this case, there is no deceleration to the wave. Okay, so I will join you in just a minute. Hopefully you are doing well with number one, and we will resume after this quick commercial break. And that commercial break was brought to us by iced tea with peach from Great Value. A nice kind of pick-me-up during the middle of the day. All right, let's continue moving on. Try and adjust this focus a little bit. So with number two now, how does the tilt of the Earth determine the seasons in the northern and southern hemisphere? How does the tilt of the Earth determine the seasons in the northern and southern hemisphere? I want you guys to remember that the Earth is tilted at a 23.5-degree angle. All right, there's our Earth. It is tilted at this angle off of the vertical. Now, looking at this, how does this give us seasons? Well, it is due to the uneven heating of the Earth. Seasons due to uneven heating of Earth. And this is due to the fact that when the sun shines, right, it is glancing off at the poles and it is hitting more directly near the equator, near the Tropic of Cancer, near the Tropic of Capricorn. The reason we also have our seasons is due to the fact that if we have the sun right in the middle, as our Earth moves around, there are different points of the Earth that are receiving the maximum amount of sunlight. Here, the southern hemisphere is receiving it. Here, the northern hemisphere is receiving it. This would be summer for us in the northern hemisphere and winter for us in the northern hemisphere, just the opposite for the southern hemispheres for Australia. This over here would be our fall and our spring. Okay. Number 3, if it is summer in the southern hemisphere, what season would it be in the winter hemisphere? And it would be just the opposite. So it would be winter. All right. Number 4, what can occur if two waves are on the same track? What can occur if two waves are on opposing tracks? And we've talked about this when we talked about building waves, when they are in phase and when they are out of phase. So let's take a look. Let's say we have a blue wave, and let's say we have a green wave. Hopefully you guys can see these colors, kind of, yep. So when these two waves are in phase, meaning they're together, you know, the top and the top are together, the bottom and the bottom are together, they will actually build on one another, and you will get a taller wave. All right, so that occurs when they are in phase. Now, the opposite would occur when we have an out of phase. So let's say we have that blue wave again, and he's traveling along nice and easy. And then we have our green wave, and this green wave looks like he is just right out of phase. So the top of the blue wave corresponds with the bottom of the green, and the bottom of the green with the top of the blue. So when these two combine, they will give us a very small wave, or pretty much nothing at all. They will essentially cancel out, and that's because these waves are out of phase with one another. All righty. All right, guys, you're doing excellent. Let's keep moving on. The next thing we want to look at is what is a sheish. That is this wonderful word right here, S-E-I-C-H-E. What is a sheish? Let's see if I can bring this down to kind of focus us in a little bit for you guys. There we go. So a sheish is a sloshing back and forth of a closed-bodied piece of water. The movement of water in a closed body, meaning it is surrounded by all sides by land, and it is the movement back and forth. Okay, so kind of think of like that in a pool, right? We have our pool, and the water is just moving back and forth, right? So it's shifting this way, and then it's shifting this way, and you get like that sloshing back and forth. We watched a couple videos on that. All right, let's keep moving. For number 6, describe and draw a diagram of both an upwelling and a downwelling. What is the benefit of each? So let's show an upwelling here, an upwelling. So with regard to an upwelling, we are going to have the water. It is moving towards the shore, and as it moves towards the shore, it will actually pick up, it will pick up the deeper ocean water. So here is our, let's see, here is our shore. Here is our water. This water will move in this direction, travel up the shoreline, and then from here it will turn over and travel out. This is what we call an upwelling because it is coming upwards. All right, and an upwelling will bring cooler, nutrient-rich water to the surface. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Now, a downwelling, on the other hand, well, we kind of have the similar picture here, right? Here's our water. In this case, water will be brought down, and that is because it is being pushed over from the surface. So here, warmer, less nutrient, rich water will move and displace deeper water. All right, guys. So some benefits here. This is driven by deep ocean currents. This is driven by shallow currents, wind driven. Some benefits. This is going to bring nutrient rich water, cooler water up. That's going to bring little fish up, which will bring big fish up, which will allow for more fishermen to get fish closer to shore. Here, the fish are being pushed away because the nutrients are traveling away. This will bring warmer water into the surface and warmer water down towards the ocean, pushing the cooler water away. All right, guys. So that is our first side. Let's move on. We're going to start with number 7 right here at the top. Explain the thermocline, circulation of water, and how does density impact this? Well, remember what thermocline is, right? That has to do with temperature. And the thermocline, I'm going to draw a column of water right here. Here is the top of the water. And we have this barrier. This barrier is the thermocline. And just like in your home, your second floor will be warmer. That is the same thing that will occur in a body of water. Your warmer water will rise to the top, and your cooler water will sink. Now, as this occurs, the warmer, less dense water will rise. The cooler, more dense water will sink, and that will create this barrier. And this barrier right here is known as the thermocline. So if you've ever been to the beach and you walk out and then you realize, oh, hey, my feet, my legs are really, really cold, but my waist, where the surface of the water is warmer, well, that's the thermocline, okay? Now, the thermocline usually presents itself a little bit deeper when we go into the open ocean, but I still want you to be aware that that's where we have the separation of temperature, okay? Number 8, draw and diagram the sun, moon, and earth during a spring tide. What phases of the moon would this occur during? So we think back to the moon and the tides, and we think back to those spring tides. Those spring tides are unusually large high tides and smaller low tides. So that's going to be when we have the maximum amount of gravitation pulling on that water. So if we have the Earth here, right? So here's our Earth on the tilt. We have the sun here. Well, when the moon is in between the sun and the Earth, not only do you have the gravitational pull of the moon on Earth's water, but you also have the gravitational pull of the sun on Earth's water. So think about that. You have all of this gravity pulling on that fluid, and what you end up getting is a really large tidal bulge, both in the front and in the back. This is the water, right? This is the tides. A little over exaggerated, just so we understand, but it's when the sun and the moon align together. Okay, it's when the sun and the moon align together, and we have spring tides when we experience both the new moon and the both the full moon and the new moon. So those are the phases. Full moon and the new moon. So what this is an example of right here, this would be an example of the new moon because the sun is illuminating this side. So we really don't see the moon. When the moon is out here, now the sun illuminates the side that we see. So we have a full moon. All right. Now, just the opposite, when we're talking about a neap tide, we're talking about the phases being the first quarter and the last quarter. First and last quarter. And what this is going to look like is we have the sun, we have the earth, and I'm going to draw the earth right here just a little bit smaller. And now the moon will be up here and below here. So not only will we be having this gravity pulling this way, but now you also have the gravity either pulling down or up, which kind of gives us a smaller bulge near the moon. So it's kind of separated out. So here we have the first quarter and the third. Ooh, I'm sorry, guys. The first quarter and the third quarter of the moon. Okay. So in this case, when the moon is at right angles to the sun, that's when we have the neap tides. All right, guys, we are almost done. 2 more problems, and that is it. Explain how a fish under the surface of the ocean does not feel the waves. So that was kind of a special little rule that we talked about in one of our videos. We said that when the wavelength, and remember the wavelength is measured from one peak to the next. That is the wavelength of a wave. Well, when the when the water is deeper than half of the wavelength, we do not feel anything. So here is half of the wavelength right here because it's half the distance. So if we were to bring that down here, right, this distance right here from from the middle of the wave down is equivalent to this distance right here. Anything below does not feel the wave. So as long as you are deeper than half the wavelength, you are not impacted by that wave. Now, if the wavelength is larger, then your depth goes deeper. Okay? And then finally, explain the type of tide, mixed, semi-diurnal, and diurnal, and explain what those are and what they mean. Well, if you remember correctly, we have the semi-diurnal, and that is dealing with 2 high tides and 2 low tides per day. So let's get this out. The mixed tide deals with 2 high and 2 low of unequal sizes each day. 2 high and 2 low, but they are unequal sizes each day. The diurnal, is that what's next? No, I'm sorry, it's the semi-diurnal. That is us. We have 2 high and 2 low of equal sizes each day. 2 high, 2 low, and 2 high tides, 2 low tides of equal sizes each day. And then finally, our diurnal, that is dealing with 1 high and 1 low, 1 high tide and 1 low tide, and those are both of equal sizes, equal size each day. So that is it for our review guide. I will bring this up to make sure that we can see everything here, guys. We are good to go. Hopefully you are all studied up and ready to go for this test, you will do fine. I have no doubt about it. Make sure you study. Make sure you've gone through all your PowerPoints, and you will do great. So guys, have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.